Hi guys, this is Agnit from JU Sense. Welcome to today's session on Compute Engine in Google Cloud Platform. Now, before we get started with the topic, let's discuss today's agenda first. We will first talk about what is a VM instance, available regions and zones for the VM instance, what are the various machine families available with suitable examples, and finally, hands-on creating a VM instance and then connecting to that instance using GCP console, PuTTY, VS Code. And finally, end our session with creating files and folders in the instance. So now let's talk about what is a VM instance. As we all know that a virtual machine is like a digital version of a physical computer where we can run programs and operating systems, store data, connect to networks and do other computing functions without the constraints of physical devices. But it also requires maintenance such as updates and system monitoring. Google Cloud Compute Engine is a service that allows users to run virtual machines on Google's infrastructure. Next, we come to configuration of VM instances where we can customize our virtual machines by choosing its size, adding more storage, choosing our desired network configuration settings, and tweaking settings to fit our specific needs. Example in storage boot persistence is provided by default, but we can choose additional storage according to our needs from various options. That is, additional storage is also available to run apps. Next, we have networks. Now, each network interface of an instance is associated with subnet of a unique VPC network. That is, when you create an instance, if you have certain subnet for a certain instance, your private cloud will basically connect to that subnet that you have created before. For this, you can add labels to your VM instance at the time of creation. Finally, coming to managing instances. Now, managing instance comes with manage instance access during OS login. So, you manage your SSH keys in the project metadata. These keys will help you log in and connect to your VM instance after creation, where these keys are generally stored as private keys. So basically what you have to do is generate certain private keys that will be used to access your VM. So this was all about configuration of VMs. Next, we come to regions and zones. Now, our VM instances are hosted in multiple locations worldwide like the US, Europe, etc. These locations are composed of regions and zones. A region is like a specific geographical location where you can host your resources, and regions can have three or more zones. Consider, for example, Europe is a multiple region where Europe West 2 is a region and it has three zones available, namely Europe West 2A, Europe West 2B, and Europe West 2C. Next, we come to machine families. A machine family is nothing but a group of virtual machine instances that share similar characteristics in terms of performance, resources, and capabilities. They have a curated set of processor and hardware configurations which are optimized for specific workloads. And in Google Cloud Platform, there are various different machine instances that they provide because of the different machine families that they belong to. For example, there are machine families like N2, N1, M1, etc. for different workloads, and their pricing will vary accordingly. We generally categorize the machine families to types on the basis of price to performance ratio that they provide. Now, let's discuss the various machine families that GCP provides us with. They are categorized into general purpose, compute optimized, memory optimized, and accelerator or GPU optimized machine families. These general purpose machine families offer best price to performance ratio for a variety of workloads. Similarly, the compute optimized machine families offer highest performance per core and are optimized for compute intensive workloads. Memory optimized families are ideal for memory intensive workloads, offering more memory per core than other machine families. Finally, we have the accelerator optimized machine families, which are best for workloads that require GPUs intensive tasks such as machine learning and high performance tasks. So next up, we talk about the different examples of each machine family. Some examples of the general purpose machine family consist of E2 that offers up to 32 virtual CPUs and 128 GB memory. N2 that offers up to 128 virtual CPUs and 8 GB memory per virtual CPU, and C3D that offers up to 360 virtual CPUs and 2, 4 or 8 GB memory per virtual CPU. Similarly, examples of compute optimized machine families include H3 offering 88 virtual CPUs and 352 GB DDR5 memory. Then we have the C2 offering up to 60 virtual CPUs and 4 GB memory per virtual CPU. And then the C2D offering up to 112 virtual CPUs and 8 GB memory per vCPU. As examples of memory-optimized machine families, we have M1 offering up to 160 vCPUs and up to 14.9 to 24 GB memory per vCPU. The M2, which is available as 6, 9 or 12 terabyte machine types, and the M3 offering up to 128 vCPUs and up to 30.5 GB memory per vCPU. Finally, as examples of accelerator optimized machine families, we have A2 that provides 12 to 96 vCPUs and up to 1360 GB memory, and also G2 that provides 4 to 96 vCPUs and up to 432 GB memory. Finally, we come to the hands-on practice where we will be creating a VM instance and then connect to that instance and end this session with creating files and folders in the instance. So log into your GCP console and then click on this navigation menu, then go to compute engine and then VM instances. Okay, after that click on create instance. So we give a name, let's give it JU sense 1. Okay, now select a region as I have discussed in the lectures what is a region and what is a zone. So we can select any region. So if you see, if I select US Central one, the cost is approximately $25.46. It's a monthly estimate. So for this tutorial, I will select a region that has a lower cost. Let's select South Carolina. As you can see, the cost came down a bit, and then let's select our zone, let's say US East 1C. So see, the cost is independent of the zone. Let's keep it the default one only. Now let's come to the machine configuration. As we have already discussed that there are 4 types of machine configuration: general purpose, compute optimized, memory optimized, and GPUs. Okay. So for this tutorial, I will select general purpose only, and I will select a relatively cheaper option. As you can see, the E2 it says low cost day-to-day computing. Okay, and so I will select this one. So I will get around 0.25 to 32 virtual CPUs and 1 to 128 GB memory. Okay, now let's come to the machine type. So there are, for this one, there are these types of machine types: E2 micro, E2 small, E2 medium. There are this also E2 standard. As you can see, for each of them the memory and the virtual CPUs varies. Then for high memories there are this one, and for high CPUs there are this one. For this tutorial I will select E2 micro. As you can see, after selecting it, the cost comes down to $6.51. Now we can select a custom one also. We can adjust the vCPUs accordingly, and moreover we can adjust the memory also accordingly. Let's select preset only and E2 micro. Now in the VM provisioning model, if you see, if I select standard, then the cost remains $6.51, and standard is mostly ideal for most workloads, but for this lecture I will select the spot one for fault tolerant workloads. As a result, you will see the cost comes down. See, it comes to $2.23. You can understand how cheaper it is. Now for this one, let's not select this properties. Now in the boot disk, let's click on change. See, the size that we are by default given is 10 GB and the image is Debian Linux. Let's click on change. and let's change the operating system from Debian to Ubuntu. See, in the version there are so many available. Let's keep the default one. Now in the boot disk type, you have so many options available: SSD, Extreme, Balance, Standard. Now the pricing will vary based upon the boot disk you select. For this one, let's go with Standard only. And for the size, let's adjust a different size. Say we give it 15 GBs. Okay. In advanced configuration, you can only just you can use a custom device name. Let's not do this time. Now let's select it. As you can see, it got changed 15 GB and Ubuntu. Now in the service accounts and access options, these are for the like the permissions. So let's give default access. In the firewall, let's allow HTTP traffic as well as HTTPS traffic. Now let's open the advanced options. As you can see, networking, disks, security, these were already discussed in the lectures. In networking, basically you can give a network tag, and that is all the VM instance having the same network tab will have the same properties. You can see assign network type to apply firewall rules to specific VM instances. Okay, so for this lecture, let's skip all of them. In the disk, as we have already discussed, we can attach a new disk. So if I click on it, we will be able to attach a new disk. Let's skip it for this lecture. In the security keys, I have already discussed that we can attach SSH keys. We will come to this part later while we will connect using PuttyGen. So let's create the instance now. It will take some time. As you can see, the instance got created having an external IP as well as an internal IP. Okay, so with this we finish our first part, that is creating an instance. We will now show you how to connect to this instance using three methods. First through SSH, secondly through PuTTY, and third through VS Code. So the first method is through SSH. Basically, you have to click on this SSH icon. You will see this pop-up will appear. It will transfer SSH keys to the VM. It's asking for authorization. I give the permission. And as you can see, I came inside the VM. Now I can write any command like ls, then mkdir test, that is I created a test directory. Let's do again ls. So test directory is present. Now let's try to remove this directory. And as you can see, it's removed. Okay, I will come back to this method later after connecting to this instance using PuTTY. So to connect using PuTTY, you have to go to putty.org and then you have to download PuTTY. Now based upon your machine configuration, download it. Since I have already downloaded it on my machine, I will not download it again. After downloading, you just have to install it. The installation is quite easy. You just have to do next and finally finish. So after the process is complete, go and search PuttyGen here. This will open. And after that, click on generate. Now hover over here using your mouse to generate some randomness in the key. And as you can see, a key is generated. Now remember this key comment because this will be your username for connecting to the instance. For this lecture, I will give it Agnif, and for the passphrase, this is actually your password. I will keep it empty for easiness. Okay, I click on generate. I clicked on generate. Now it's time to save it as a private key. So I save it as a private key. Click on yes. Give a name. Let's say I give the name ju instance 1 dot. Okay, it's a ppk file. So let's save it. Then you have to do another thing, that is you also have to save it as a PEM file. So you have to go to conversions, then export open SSH key, force new file format. and yes. Now you have to save it as juinstance1.pem and then click on save. Then you have to just copy it. I have copied it. Now you can close it. Next, click on this instance and then click on edit. That is, you have to add that SSH key in this instance. So come down. Here you can see SSH keys. Let's delete these ones and let's add our SSH key. So I have added this one and then click on save. So our SSH key is saved. Now go back to our VM instance. And now open PuTTY. Here it's asking for a host name. Host name is basically the external IP. So copy this one and paste it here. The next step is click on SSH, then auth and then credentials. In the private key file auth for authentication, go to browse and select the private key file that you have created. That is the PPK file. We have created this one, so I select this one. And so that you don't have to open it again and again and do the same process, you can basically save it. So let's give the name JU instance and then save it. Then you can open it. You have to click on accept, and as it is asking login as, I give my name, and you can see I have opened the VM instance again. Now I can do ls again and see there is nothing. I create a directory, let's name it as test. Now let's move into test and let's create a Python file here. Before creating it, let's check whether Python is installed in our machine or not. So as you can see, yeah, Python is installed. It's version 3.8.10. So let's create a Python file. So let's give the name touchfile.py. The file is created. Let's check it. Yeah, the file is created. Now let's open the file. As you can see, now let's add some code here. Let's add a very simple code of adding two numbers. And I have written my code. Now let's get out of this VA editor. I have came out. Now let's check whether the code is present inside the file or not. As you can see, the code is present. Now let's try to run this code. As you can see, we are getting the output sum is 12 as it is expected. So after this method, I will show you the third method of connection, that is connection using VS Code. Okay, so now I will show you the third method of connecting to an instance, that is using VS Code. So for that you need to have VS Code installed in your machine. After that, go and search VS Code here and then open a new window. After that, go to extensions and search for remote SSH. This is the extension that you will be required. You need to install it. Since I have already installed it, I am skipping this step. After that, click on this icon and then click on connect to host. After that, click on add new SSH host and give a name to it. Let's give JUSense name to it and then open config. Let's open the config. Then you have to make three changes. First of all, you have to write here user and then username, that is for my case it's Agnev, and then the identity file where you need to give the link of the PEM file, that is this one. So copy its path and then paste it here. Now in the host name you have to give the external IP address, that is this one. Just copy it and paste it here. Then you have to again click on it, this one, and then connect to host and then JUSense. A new window will appear. As you can see, it has already opened. Sometimes it might ask for some permissions here. At that time, click on Linux and then continue. So now, as you can see, I have opened my terminal. Then to open the folders, click on File, Open Folder in Home. And then as you remember that we have created our code in test directory. So select test and then OK. It's taking some time to load it. And as you can see, exactly the same code that we have created there. Now let's create another code here using VS Code and let's name it as code.py. And we have created it. Now let's write a very simple code. Let's print a pattern. So we will be printing a pattern. So now let's try to run it. And as you can see, we are able to print the pattern. So I have showed you how I can connect through VS Code. Now let's again go back to your previous method, that is connection using SSH. So let's close this one and then opens to SSH. Follow exactly the same steps. Click on authorize. As you can see, we are back to our terminal. Now as you remember that we have created a username Agnev, so let's switch to username Agnev. So sudo su Agnev, click on yes. As you can see, I have came to Agnev's terminal. Now click on cd dot dot and then cd Agnev. Now click on ls. As you can see, I can see our test directory that we have created using putty. So let's enter into test. And then if we click ls, you can see I have two files. One is the file.py that we created using putty, then code.py that we created using VS Code. Let's try to execute both of them through this terminal. So Python 3 file.py, you can see sum is 12. Let's try to print the code too. So cat file.py. Yeah, it's the same code that we wrote there. Now let's try to open the pattern code. As you can see, it's the same code that we wrote in VS Code. And let's try to execute the code. As you can see, it's the same output 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this was all the methods using which you can connect to the VM instance. I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you.